Hello everyone, welcome back to Josh Impact Insights, your weekly talk show about causes and effects. During COVID, lakhs of NGOs played a pivotal role in relief initiatives, but the biggest problem was credibility and transparency. Recently, the government announced major regulatory changes under income tax and CSR laws, which came into effect from 1st of April 2021 for the NGO sector to strengthen the compliance mechanism, enhance transparency and accountability. To know more about how these regulatory changes will ensure that the CSR and philanthropy money goes through the right channel and brings the maximum impact on ground, let's welcome our guest today, Mr. Pankaj Sancheti. He is a chartered accountant with over 16 years of professional experience in the field of corporate taxation, transfer pricing, and regulatory matters. He has served a wide range of Indian and global companies in different industry verticals. Prior to founding Kevlin Consultants, Pankaj was partner at PwC in Chennai and associate partner at EY in Hyderabad. He is currently member of the executive committee at Telangana and Andhra Pradesh Tax Bar Association, the Direct Tax Committee at ICI Hyderabad branch, as well as Direct Tax Committee at Federation of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh Chambers of Commerce and Industry. He is also chairman of the executive committee at IFA India Hyderabad subchapter. Hi Pankaj and welcome to Josh Impact Insights. Talking about NGOs, I think the first question that comes to mind is that who can get registered as an NGO under the Income Tax Act?
Under the Income Tax Act, it's a very broad definition. Anyone with a charitable purpose or a religious purpose can get registered. So the charitable and religious thing go together under the Income Tax Act. So there is no, and it's not separate for charitable and separate for religious. They go together. So anyone having a charitable purpose can get registered under the Income Tax Act as an NGO or a religious trust. The definition of charitable, it's defined in the, and to quote the technical section, section 215, it's 2(15), it's defined there, and anything related, any activity related to relief to poor in the field of education, healthcare, any activities which is on environmental conservation, heritage conservation, promoting yoga, and there is a residuary definition also, anything of general public utility also falls under the NGO registrations. But the general public utility, it has a condition that it should not be, should not involve business activities. There could be incidental business activities, provided the incidental business activity or trade receipts are less than 20% of the total NGO's receipts. But the main activity should not be a business activity.
Okay, so for education and healthcare activities, is registration under income tax advisable?
There is something which is not so popular, but which is under the Income Tax Act. Some NGOs or non-governmental activities are listed under another section. So this, what I said is the normal understanding is they get registered under the section 12A. So there is one more section which is called 10(23)(c), where education, NGOs in the field of education or also other, any other charitable purpose also can get registered. Now this registration process was little lengthier earlier. You had to go almost to the maybe a very higher authorities to get approved. Governmental authorities have to get it recognized and those things. So very few, maybe education universities, large hospitals which used to go for this registration. Now, but with the new regulations coming into place, both the things are under the process is similar. But there have been some change in the law in the sense that earlier suppose there is a very large NGO, they would have got their educational institute registered under 10(23)(c), other activities under the 12A. So they had this flexibility to do some activities under 10(23)(c) registration and some under a 12A. So that this thing has been removed now. You can either be a 12A registered NGO or a 10(23)(c) registered NGO. You can't have both. So earlier it was possible that some is registered under both of them because they could have multiple units. So big NGO could have a hospital also, you could have an education institute also, they may be doing something for a general public good also. So now that has changed, you can be in one of the places.
Is any separate registration required to issuing donation certificate which allows the donor to claim income tax deduction for the donated amount?
Yes, so this is a very important thing because the whole objective of getting registered as an NGO is to give benefit to the donors. And because without issuing a certificate, the donor will not get this benefit. So there is additional requirement. So an NGO may get registered under 12A, 1023C, but they still have to get registered. An additional registration is required for issuing certificates. And now the whole process has been made online, including giving details of who has donated. Those details have to be filed by the NGO online to the government website, and the donors will accordingly be given benefit. So if a donor, even if he takes the amount, issues a physical certificate, but does not upload the details in the income tax website, the donor will not get the benefit. So additional certificate is required, but additional compliances also has to be done.
What are the annual compliance requirements for an NGO under the Income Tax Act?
Under the Income Tax Act, as I already mentioned, that whatever is applicable to a general business, most of the provisions are applicable to an NGO also. And most prominently is the TDS provisions, where you have to, if you're making certain payments, if the TDS applies or withholding tax applies, you have to do the deductions and accordingly make the net payments only. Second is the restriction on cash. That also is a very important compliance requirement. And then you also, from an annual perspective, you are required to file return on time, because if you don't file a return on time, then you may not be able to get the benefit of the NGO registration. And you are also required to get your accounts audited annually. So this is also a requirement which is there. So multiple requirements, which as applicable to any other business. But the good thing what I see is all these requirements, compliances are online. So you don't have to run around different places or do the filings. Everything can be done from your home or from your office online.
What if an NGO has missed registering under the Income Tax Act? Can it be done belatedly? Also, any penalty for missing out on the registration?
So the registration under the Income Tax Act for an NGO is completely voluntary. It is not mandated. And the previous regulations and the new process for registration has come just now. It is still not working under the online because the website is down. But the earlier process was cumbersome. There were a lot of delegated power given to the commissioner to accept or reject. And there were a number of cases where NGO applications were getting rejected. And then you had to fight an appeal, and many NGOs then would not even go for an appeal. So, so it is voluntary. And if any NGO did not register it immediately, or they missed in doing it for a few years, they can still do it now afresh. The thing is, from the date they get registered as an NGO, the relevant provisions will apply to them. Yeah, they can. There's no harm in even if they have not done it in the past. They can do it afresh now. Penal consequences. Obviously, you will, since you're not governed by the NGO provisions under the Act, which are beneficial. So if you are an NGO, I mean, the key benefit is that you can accumulate certain amount of your income, which is 15% of your income or profits, without any taxation. And then you can utilize that in future. So if you're not registered, then you don't get this benefit. You are basically, whatever income or profits you have, those get taxed. So there's no penal consequence, but indirect there is a penal consequences, because you will not be able to get the accumulation benefit. Because it always happens that you are not able to spend everything in a year. You may get in 1 year, but you may spend it in another year. So all those things are there. So those benefits you will not get. So indirect, there could be penal consequences or tax consequences. But yeah, other than then, yes. I just want to add one more thing, because you raised this point on penalty. See, the provisions of the Income Tax Act, as they apply to any other business or any other form of entity, they equally apply to an NGO also. NGOs many times miss doing these compliances. Like if you are an NGO and you're paying salary, you have to do TDS. If you're paying rent, you have to do TDS. If you're paying some service fee to someone, you have to do a withholding tax. And so many NGOs miss on this thing. They feel that since they're NGOs, it's not a business. This other provisions will not apply to them. No, it's not the case. Even if you're an NGO, you have to do all of these compliances. And if you miss those compliances, the respective consequences will follow.
So can you give an example on, how sometime an NGO was penalized for missing out on this registration?
So I'll give you an example where registration, there was a case which I had handled. The registration was rejected. They did not go on appeal. And then they continued to function. The NGO continued to function. Now they had, they got donations. They had some expenses, which was there. So primarily they did not have any additional income as such, but they had a corpus which was giving them bank interest. Now this bank interest was taxed under as income from other sources, and they were not allowed to set off this expenses against this surplus, which was or the bank interest which was coming. So an NGO was getting taxed on the gross bank interest. Though they had a net deficit, they were spending more than what they were getting, but still they had to pay tax and on gross amount. Suppose they're getting a 10 lakh rupees interest, 3 lakh rupees was being taken away. And sometimes what happens is NGOs are not aware of these things. They go and make an application, and then when the assessment happens, these things come up. So they basically wouldn't have the funds to pay the taxes because they would have spent all the funds when they would have received in the respective years.
One other big question that comes to mind is if a NGO can receive donations in cash.
Yeah, so this was, the cash thing after the demonetization, right? Everything, the government is restricting cash transactions. So similar to the business, they have restricted cash transactions to political parties, to NGO donations. So NGO is advised not to do anything in cash because they cannot take any donation above 2,000 rupees in cash. So previously they could have taken any amount. Now they cannot take more than 2,000 rupees in cash. They cannot incur expenditure above 10,000 rupees in cash for a single transaction. So there are restrictions on cash transactions. So cash is best avoided.
Also, can an NGO receive donations from abroad?
We're discussing this, and I'm restricting my views, comments, everything to the income tax. So the income tax as such does not stipulate that from whom you can receive a donation. You can receive a donation from anyone. But there are other regulations which govern foreign transactions or foreign donors. And most prominently here, it is the Foreign Contribution Regulations Act. Now this has, if you read the papers also in the past few months, this has government's high level of scrutiny happening to foreign donations and thing. So you can receive as per from a tax perspective, no issues, but you will have to comply with the FCRA regulations, Foreign Contributions Regulation Act, which requires if any NGO wishes to take foreign donations to get registered with the FCRA authority, to open a bank account in SBI Delhi branch, and then for report any receipts to the FCRA. So it is possible, yeah, but with additional compliances.
What is your take on the new regulations that have been introduced this year?
The previous regulations are not that friendly, I would say. Most of the applications for registrations were getting rejected. A lot of litigation used to happen. So clearly a revamp was required. But right now, we don't know how the new regulations will function. It should function very good because the way it is, it's online. There is no face-to-face. You don't have to meet the officers. It's a faceless kind of thing. But currently, we are facing a technical issue. The income tax website is down. So we are not able to make the applications for registrations. So that's a temporary thing, I hope. But that's the issue. And I think these regulations should work good in the future. So just to summarize, what are the new regulations? It's only on the registration, nothing significant, but it's on the regulations. And the thing is, every NGO, even if it was registered in the past, has to make a fresh registration. Now, why fresh registration? We are already registered. I think that the requirement is government wants to collect this data through an online mode, because now it is spread across India. Because every city has an directorate exemptions where these applications were being made and registered and audit being done. Now the government wants to maybe centralize it and collect all the data. So there's a requirement, everyone has to do it. Even new NGOs, old NGOs, everyone has to make a fresh application. The due date was 30th June. was the due date. It got now extended to August because the website was not working, but still it's not working. So we don't know, maybe August also, it may get further extended also. And the other part of the new regulations is again the time limit. Previously, there was no defined time limit by which the officer could give a registration certificate. Now there is a defined time limit, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months for different type of NGOs, within which they'll be able to get the registration certificate, and they don't get anything, any inquiry or any questions back. Will be deemed to be registered.
Thanks a lot, Pankaj, for the wonderful insights. These will help many existing NGOs, including those currently working without registration, in understanding the spirit and importance of regulatory changes and overcoming the fear of income tax regulations.
Yeah, thank you, Tavishi. I wish you the best and Josh community the best. Working with so many NGOs, it's really good. They need a lot of support and guidance, and you're doing a really good job helping them.